You lost for words? Welcome to a new video. Thanks again for all the watches so far and all the comments. They really do help us, so appreciate that. Keep them coming. Also Instagram. If you're not following us on there, which is Mark McCann 64, it is different content to this, so well worth a visit. So here behind me today, one of my very favourite cars, the Ford Escort Cosworth, or better known to his mates as Cosy. So this is another homologation car, which I do love. So it was all about going Group A WRC rallying. Ford had the right size car, but it didn't have the right spec. This was a front wheel drive transverse engine, so it wasn't going to win any races, never mind a championship. So Ford Motorsport had some great ingredients. The innards of the Ford Sierra was fantastic, but they just had to fit it into this 5th generation Escort. They got it done and they called it the Ford Escort RS Cosworth. 4-wheel drive was winning the World Rally Championship. It was the only way to get the speed coming out of those corners. So they had to make 2,500 of these to qualify for the regulations. They sold that batch no problem at all. The car was very successful. So they continued with the production and made 7,000 pieces. So the number wasn't exactly massive. The production was from 1992 to 1996. That 7,000 was quite a small number, and who was buying this and how they were driving them, that number was about to get a lot smaller. Now back in the 90s, the cheapest way to buy this car was to steal it. And that was the problem with this car. Its success was its own failure. Like many of the small hot hatches in the 80s and 90s, they were just being stolen everywhere. And it was something which was such a big problem, people were struggling to get insured. Steering wheel lock, immobiliser, handbrake lock, gear stick lock, wheel clamp, deadlocks, tracker, alarm, a dog and 24-hour security. None of that stopped these cars from being stolen. If you woke up on a Monday morning and this thing was still on your drive, you'd done well. So this car isn't a hot hatch, it's a little bit bigger. So I suppose today's equivalent, it's similar to a Focus RS or a Subaru STI or a Renault McCann RS. So even against those modern day cars, this car still looks fantastic. So these are available in 3 different options. You was your Motorsport, which had no electric windows and a few of the mod cons. You had your standard version, which had lots of extras you could choose from, and then you had a Luxe, which came with all those extras as standard. This car inside out is standard, and that's really rare because back then people were spending a lot of money to make them go faster. And the rules were, the faster it went, the prettier your girlfriend was. These were being tweaked to a whole new level. Some people were getting 1,000 brake horsepower out of them, but the trouble was that made them about as reliable as a modern day Land Rover. You really can't help love the look of this car. It is amazing. The great big fat arches, the bonnet scoops, the front splitter, and that back wing. It was the first ever mass production car to have a rear wing spoiler which actually did something. That was not just for looks. The really old-fashioned old school alloys, the big flat pieces of glass. This car looked really angry. It looked like it was ready for business. This has to be the most iconic spoiler ever made on a production car. It even has a nickname, the Whale Tail. So depending on what age group are watching now, ask your dad or even your granddad. This was a special thing. In today's days, the cool thing is to debadge your car, but back then it was all about this. The Escort RS, but the really special bit, the Cosworth. Debadging this would be a crime, and that's why I'd never dream of taking that bit off. So enough about the beauty of this car, let's have a look underneath the hood. So that is a 2-litre turbo engine, a T35 Garrett turbo engine. This car started at 227 brake horsepower 30 years ago, with about 300 torque. It was a 5-speed manual 16 valve. So to make it good for the rallying, they twisted the engine around 90 degrees. Cosworth got hold of it, and it really does look a piece of art. That would look fantastic underneath your glass coffee table. So let's have a look at the old school interior.
You don't try like that quickly. Where's my car gone?
I sold it. We got a good offer. You'd have to go. Dobbs, mate. Sorry.
Interesting.
Time for the bus. Oh, child on the loose. Got to be on the ball with these kids. So when I met Jane, hopefully she can't hear this, the way to get yourself a girlfriend back then, which I did with Jane, spent a lot of time in the back seat. And mum and dad won't be watching. These Recaro seats, they are fantastic. Now there was an option for the leather, but the trouble with leather with an old car, especially 30 years old, even if it's not used, they get really cracked and grainy, they look horrific. And that's why the cloth seats in a classic car, I think, look a lot better. So back in the 90s, that was the driving position. All right, Jane, I'll be back there in a minute. Now this dash is nice. Back then, white dials were the thing, and that's what made it sporty. They look really good on this car. And also, back then, there was no such thing as Apple Play. This had a tape deck and a CD. This was revolutionary. So obviously manual handbrake, like that is the way forward, and I wish that all cars still had that now. That's so much fun. Anyway, we've moved on to electric. Now, that partial shelf, that is probably worth more money than an antique coffee table. You don't find a partial shelf like that. They've usually got a subwoofer hole and two 18-inch Pioneer speakers. So yeah, a great selling point on this car. And the view in that rear view mirror is amazing. You can just see the whale tail. But of course, 30 years ago, you'd also see the police car trying to keep up. You want to come in a racing car? Yeah? Do you like the racing car? Okay, bye-bye. Not a fan of 90s hot hatches. So we'll get this car started, give it a bit of a run. In fact, we'll go see Nick, the mechanic, because he loves this car and he's not seen it going. So we'll get him to give it a check over while we're there. Sound too good. I think we better go to Nick and get him to change the fuel actually. It's been in a while. Definitely need some fuel.
Would you like a hand mark?
This is a one-man show, George. I'm covered in petrol. Stop being so stubborn. Let people help. Oh dear. Come on, Nick, we're coming for you, pal.
Well, that did not feel good at all.
Not quite sure what's going on. This definitely doesn't feel right, but we're chugging along now. We haven't got that long to go before we get to Nick's. This car I haven't used for quite a while, and this is a prime example why you shouldn't do that. You know, they do need driving. Nick has been a friend for a long while now. I trust him with all the stuff we do. He's a very, very good mechanic, and always keen to help and go above and beyond, you know. And together with Chancey, his friend, who's more on the recovery side, they're a good working team. Nick could do with a wider entrance. Always makes me nervous, this does. Turned up, unfortunately Nick's not here, so we're going to go around the corner and see him round there.
Huh?
Want the window down?
Oh God, alright.
Daddy, how stupid is that?
Good place for a winder, that.
Terrible.
To be honest, I thought we'd have had electric windows, but
that takes away speed.
extra weight. That's what it is, weight saving.
She's running a bit bad.
Okay.
So that sounds fine. When you drive it, it's like blah, 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 blah. That was all.
You have to check the fuel and spark plugs and things like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we thought it was going to be. This was all about how this car drove, and at the minute it's not driving. So we'll can this for today. We'll go get some tea, get some rest, and then hopefully tomorrow morning Nick will get it sorted and we'll get to have a proper go in the Escort Cosy. Good morning, welcome back. As you saw yesterday, we had our problems with the Escort, so Nick's come over this morning to try and solve the situation. Nick's going to take it on a test drive now, and fingers crossed we're going to get it running for us today. Actually, you need to be sat here. What do you think?
It's a bit spluttery when you put it under load.
Yeah.
So it could be spark plugs, maybe coil packs, leads, but we'll try spark plugs first because it's the cheapest and simplest thing to do and check.
We were thinking, yes, it may be dirty fuel, but I was hoping it was going to clear out, because when we went all the way over to yours and back,
yeah,
it was quite a few miles, but it still didn't seem to make any difference.
Yeah, it's still a bit spluttery.
Have you ever driven one of these?
No, I've drove a Sierra Cosworth 3-door. To be fair, the Sierra that I drove was modified. It was like 400 horsepower.
It sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah. say, if you just squeeze the throttle, it's fine. It's when you squeeze it all the way in one hit.
Now would that not be more spark plug than fuel filter in that case?
It could also be fuel delivery, so it could be a weak pump.
Right. How's Jane's seat?
I mean, I'm just glad there's no marks.
So Nick's gone to get the spark plugs. We're not sure if that's going to fix it, but fingers crossed. But like you said, this is the easiest fix, the cheapest fix. Fingers crossed we get to drive it today.
So got the spark plugs, we're going to go back and put them in. Hopefully it fixes the misfire. If it doesn't, then it's like I say, fuel tank out, fresh fuel and fuel filter and all that sort of stuff, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it.
Breakfast? Look at them bad boys. Jane is going to go mad when she sees we've been here and got her nothing at all. So bought the spark plugs. Has it fixed it?
Has it fixed it?
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
So spending 50 quid didn't fix it?
Never more than 50 quid.
Magic. I better fix it, just cost me 50 quid.
Right, so now we're back at the house and I'm going to put the spark plugs in and hopefully it's got rid of the misfire, so we get to go for another drive in it. Yes. First things first, let's get the spark plug cap off, the cover off. There's supposed to be 6 bolts, but there's 1 missing, so there's only 5. We've got 2 core packs and then we've got a lead and another lead that goes to the other 2 spark plugs. Let's remove them now. There's one, there's one, and then the coil packs are held in by Torx bolts.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Well, that was one of your two.
I think she took the cake, George.
Oh, look, George. Unlucky.
Yep. So, number 1 spark plug's coming out now. Let's compare it to a new one. See, the gap's a bit bigger on this one.
So Nick's just finished, we're back together, we're going to go for a test drive and hopefully we get to drive it properly. Spark plug's in,
New one's in.
the moment of truth.
Oh well.
Plan B.
Yep.
So what's next?
Fuel filter. I think we might need to check that. It might have gunged up for being stored for so long.
And is this the classic example of getting them out every now and again and use?
Yeah, use them definitely, yeah, 100%.
So we can't do anything else for now, so please don't forget to like and subscribe and maybe comment about what you think might be the problem. So there's definitely going to be a part 2, so see you next Tuesday.